Read-only memory is a type of non-volatile memory used in computers and other electronic devices. Data stored in ROM can only be modified slowly, with difficulty or not at all. So it is mainly used to store firmware, which is actually software that is closely tied to specific hardware and unlikely to need frequent updates, or application softwares in plug-in cartridges. Some examples of ROM are hard drives, pen drives, CD-ROM and memory cards. More recently, ROM has come to include memory that is read-only in normal operation but can still be reprogrammed in some way. Main types of ROM are as follows: programmable ROM, erasable programmable ROM, electrically erasable programmable ROM. Now we talk about PROM. A programmable read-only memory is a form of digital memory where the setting of each bit is logged by a fuse or anti-fuse. The data in them is permanent and cannot be changed. Now we will discuss about architecture of PROM. There are three inputs, A0, A1 and A2. These are address inputs and pass the address into a 3x32 decoder. It will generate the min terms. Then we take 3 OR gates and pass the output of 3x32 decode and get the 3 output as F1, F2 and F3. Now let's talk about EPROM. EPROM is the abbreviation of erasable programmable ROM. The data stored in EPROM is erasable by means of light of certain wavelengths. In an EPROM, the cell at each intersection has 2 transistors. The 2 transistors are separated from each other by a thin oxide layer. One of the transistors is known as the floating gate and the other is known as the control gate. The floating gate's only link to the row, which is called as a word line, is through the control gate. As long as this link is in place, the cell has value of 1. Tunneling is used to alter the placement of electrons in the floating gate. An electrical charge, usually 10 to 13 volts, is applied to the floating gates. Now we talk about EEPROM. EEPROMs are similar to EPROM, but it can be erased electronically, hence the name electronically erasable programmable ROM. It returns the electrons in the cell of an EEPROM to normal with localized application of an electrical field to each cell. This erases the target cells of the EEPROM, which can then be rewritten. The EEPROMs are changed 1 byte at a time. ROM data flow. There are 4 major components required to read or write data to and from the ROM, which is secondary storage. These are input unit, storage unit, central processing unit and output unit. The storage unit consists of primary and secondary memory, which is RAM and ROM respectively, while the CPU consists of control unit and arithmetic and logic unit. The data is taken from the input unit, which moves to the RAM and then to the ROM. The data can also be taken from the CPU and its register and cache memory to be written in the ROM. The control unit and the arithmetic unit work in tandem to write or read the data to or from the ROM. The written or fetched data can be transferred to an output device if required. So this is all for the topic of ROM, and now we'll move on to the next topic.